Let me now invite the moderator of the session. We have John Alok D. Cruz, Director of Morphogenesis, over here with us today. Alok D. Cruz has nearly 2 decades of comprehensive experience in the design and execution of multiple projects and currently heads the Mumbai and Pune studios. His body of work spans across a diverse range of typologies such as commercial, residential, offices, hospitality and institutional projects which are both environmentally and financially sustainable. Give a huge round of applause to John Alok D. Cruz as I call him up on stage. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. I'll now be calling our speakers in alphabetical order. We have Akhil Ganatra, Managing Director, Clancy Global. Akhil has, over the last 18 years, established the practice as a first-generation built environment consultancy and second generation in construction. The organization has service capabilities across building services design, digital twins, tech-enhanced project management, and smart infra with integrative sustainability. Under his leadership, Clancy Global has consulted 300 plus million square feet over 700 projects in 85 cities and across 5 countries. Give a huge round of applause to Mr. Akhil Ganatra as well. Please, all of you over here. Thank you. We also have Amrita Chaudhary, co-founder and CEO, Gaia Smart Cities. Amrita is a business strategist, engineer, and innovator. She has been instrumental in building national-scale digital platforms for Startup India, Marg, Invest India, Swachh Bharat Mission Urban, National Institute for Urban Affairs, United Way USA, Indian Railways, Airports Authority of India, among many others. Give a huge round of applause once again for Amrita as well, please. Thank you so much for joining us. We have G. Nagavarma, Vice President, Business Development, NCL Doors, over here with us as well. He brings forward 34 years of valuable experience and accomplished executive with a history of leadership roles in sales and business development, focused on achieving exceptional business growth within the construction and industrial real estate sectors. Great body of work. Give it up for Mr. Nagavarma as well, please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. We also have Kuldeep Sehrawat with us over here, President, Architecture and Design, Tribeca Developers. Kuldeep ji has a penchant for innovative designs and has a vast experience in working on building systems for sustainability, cost effectiveness and buildability, and has successfully designed, managed and delivered more than 50 high-rise projects with real estate firms. Give it up for him as well, please, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kuldeep over here. We also have Dr. Pony M. Concesao, Principal Architect and Founder, Pony and Oscar plus Rahul Architects with us over here as well. She's worked with internationally renowned architectural firm in New York City before joining her husband in 1996, ushering on era of diverse award-winning projects. Currently, she is designing the prestigious Telangana State Secretariat at Hyderabad. The entire panel is here. Can we please have the loudest amount of cheers for this very, very special panel? Thank you so much, sir. And I pass it over to you.
With technology, AI. So anyway, something that I don't really think anybody in this room would be able to completely say they've got the complete hang of, because we've seen a lot of movement that has happened in our field, over the last 30, 40 years or so, where most of the people in this room have possibly been practicing. And we did a shift from, two-dimensional drafting by hand. We went on to things like CAD. We've then moved on to three-dimensional drafting and things like BIM in tech. And then today, with AI, we use it to a certain extent across the visualization or the initial conceptualization kind of stages. And then subsequently, we've also seen a lot of use of it across the production stages or the detailing and / production stages in increasing efficiency. So both ways, it increases efficiency during the design stage as well as on the other end. But have we truly been able to grasp the potential of where we could be? Because obviously this is a crazy curve. Everything went along at a certain pace, and right now you're either like constantly playing catch up or you're getting really left behind. So I'd like to start with Dr. Pony. And I mean, you have the maximum experience over here. on this panel, and you've actually gone through, all of those stages. A lot of us, I think, have gone straight on to AutoCAD, for example. We didn't actually have hand drafting other than in college when we were forced to do it, when we weren't given, allowed to use even mechanical pencils, for example. But other than that, we came out, we just started working on CAD straight away. So you've seen that shift, and where do you see us going,
Can you hear me?
Very softly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I started out with manual drafting in college at the National Institute of Technology. And after I finished my BArch, I went to Cornell University and then on to Harvard, and then I worked in New York City. And it was a culture shock for me because straight from manual, I had to jump into AutoCAD. And from on there, when I came back to India, Oscar and I immediately digitized our office. We jumped onto CAD, and I guess we were one of the very few offices in the country in the early mid-90s that made the shift from manual to CAD. And indeed, that was something that helped us in our business because there's something called speed. The faster you give a solution to a client, the index of success only grows. So CAD really helped, computers really helped. And from CAD, of course, we just finished the Telangana State Secretariat where we used BIM to a very large extent. We also tried to use terrain modeling, but given the short time frame, it was kind of difficult. But then what's happening today is you need to get into AI, and I think AI is similar to what we had CAD in the 1980s. It's merely a tool. If you're smart, you pick it up. It's a powerful tool. It can make your designs that much more cost-effective, efficient. You can you can use that to generate solutions very, very quickly. So there are three factors in AI, which we're also slowly discovering, because I feel in India, on a practical level, 41% of global firms today use AI all over the world. In India, AI has crept in, not as fast as we think it is, but the reason is when we use BIM, we found it very difficult to find people trained in BIM at that point in time. And I'm talking 3 years ago. It was very frustrating because we hired somebody and the guy was really slow. But today things have changed because I find the interns working in my office today, the very young architects, have jumped into AI. And that is going to be the driving element in our field. There are three factors in which, verticals in which AI will make an impact. One, of course, is architecture. Second is building construction. And third is urban design. So these are the three verticals in which AI is making a huge, huge impact. And again, AI for me, in my practice, site analysis. It's helped to boost site analysis, generative design, 3D modeling, intelligent building systems. I can't tell you how fast the process is. Of course, in construction field, there's something called construction robots, which will take a longer time for India to pick up on. But there's something called construction monitoring, where AI is helping a lot. So these are the verticals in which AI is making a huge comeback. Now, if you ask me about the future of AI in our field, they'll be in three areas as designers. One is generative design. It can just pull out so many concepts most of the time. I mean, it's mind-boggling at the number of concepts. But AI can never replace the human mind. This I can tell you. Because it can give you 100 solutions. Somebody's got to sit down and make a decision on which solution actually fits into the site. Because there are hidden parameters like the cultural factors, the psychological factors. I think it will take a long time for AI to get into that realm of things because AI can never replace something called the human consciousness. It's going to take a much longer time. So generative design, sustainability. AI is helping us a lot in making quick energy modeling, cost effectiveness in a sustainability-oriented project, selection of materials, impact of nature into the project. So that's a second element. And third, of course, automation of repetitive and mundane tasks in designing. All that it just chops down the time so much that now architects can think about being more creative, theory of design. And of course, lastly, I would say strategies in design. See, that's something that AI cannot get you. It's the business side, it's a little bit on the design side. So it gives us a lot more time to focus on these key areas. So I would say AI is definitely a very, very powerful tool.
Yeah, thanks. And I think it's these guys have been using a bit of it as well, because some of the points you mentioned, some of those people are right here. Nah? So we have the architects, we have the people on the building side, we have the people on the urban design side. Speed, nah? That was your key word. Nah? And so I think I'll take the next person I'm going to catch is for that exactly. Yeah, Mr. Akil. Okay, so with regard to speed, and we may be, depending on what he says, we may end up poaching some of his systems, or we may end up poaching some of his people. Okay, but so tell us a bit about it. You guys have been doing BIM for quite some time, right? I believe you guys are now taking a certain amount of automation into that as well, into the process. And you all do believe you all are cutting down the time by 70%. So tell us a bit about it.
So, I mean, let's start with a little bit of context is why do we need speed in that sense, other than the fact that we need our operations to be more efficient. I think at least most of us are consultants here, and consultant fees haven't gone up in the last 15 years at least that have been in business. So effectively, to make a clean profit, what you're doing is making your operational resources more efficient and trainability much faster. Because anyone who's run a consulting practice more than a decade or a decade and a half in India, you know that we are a training institute for many people who come. And we stopped thinking like that now for a decade, that we are a training institute, that's what our role is. Now in terms of what we are doing to cut time, there's another element that I think all of us should know is OpenBIM or ISO 19650. OpenBIM came from the context that the governments needed the digital twins to be sovereign assets, which means Singapore has a digital twin for the entire city. Now they can't say that am I using X software or Y software or Z software or whichever software. Finally, the file has to go into their server. So in 2019, what happened with BIM is that it opened up. You could code over it. So if you think of how well we did with IT, and you also think of, does all banks use the same software? Or the same company, they don't. So in terms of the global mark that we can make with India, with OpenBIM, is significant. Now, I'll give you examples of what we've done. Our entire BIM process is a 2D to 3D process, so no special training required. One of the biggest things that we talk about BIM, कि उसको special training देना पड़ेगा, they'll have to have a solid system that can process the 3D or the full building together and things of that sort. And I'd say we complicated it for ourselves because we thought it was a new thing. It has to be complicated. It has to require a new resource base to be able to do this. Currently, we've cut our design development time from schematic to GFC by 70% because our workflow, again I said, is 2D to 3D. So you draw a single line. There is enough AI. Every air conditioning systems have been around in the world for years. Electrical systems have been around for years. Structural systems have been around for years. So at a building system understanding level, there is I won't say very less new, but relatively lesser new, or it's a build-up on what you already know as base of construction in some sense. So anyways, long story short, the computer can now calculate it. So if you connect a single line to 3 WCs, 2 floor traps, and 2 urinals, the single line goes to 3D with a calculated with bottom of pipe, with the annotation sizing, all but in 40 to 80 seconds. So in some sense, we almost have to step back that just because of speed, do we want to do something completely new, or is it something that we already have and can maximize? Last example. Currently, we are making architectural models without any human intervention. As long as there's a 2D, which is in the right layers, the right blocks, and the right polylines, without human intervention, it converts it into a 3D model. So, you know that first thing, that पहले structural architectural model तो लगेगा, फिर MEP जाएगा उसमें, फिर interior जाएगा. That pinch, in some senses, resolved significantly. So, I mean, AI is not complicated. It's supposed to make our life easier. We are going to grow 20 years older, but our resource base is going to remain 22 to 32. So no matter how old we are getting, in some sense, we have to use this as a great opportunity on the global stage where we've got amazing coders, so we can build a BIM workflow better than anyone in this world. And because of the last 15 years, the volume of experience, this is what I was asking you, right? You've got a portfolio today, anywhere in the world it would be reckoned with. BIM, coding, all this is going to make us at that stead. We will be able to go there and become principal consultants. Bottom line, IT went from BPO, KPO to principal consultants. As Indian companies with the experience that we have and the technology at our hand, we will go from a BPO, KPO to a principal consultant across the world. That's it, buddy.
So nice vision straight ahead, and you pushed us all into international waters now. I'm going to take up Amrita next, but one quick thing before I move on. Any percentage that you could allocate across like architecture, structure, MEP, as which side would you max saving would you see?
In terms of design development?
Yeah.
It's actually architecture structural the easiest, fastest. Like I said, in MEP it's harder to develop that no human intervention automation. But within architecture and structure, that's already there. And also because we've followed CAD discipline, right? Everyone who's used CAD will know we've followed our layers properly, we've made our polylines properly, nahi to square foot nahi nikalta, all that. So it's just bringing that old discipline and using AI to convert it. So the easier functions are going to be easier, not the designing function.
Yeah.
But the physical production of what you've designed is much faster.
Okay, thanks. Amrita, coming to you, you and your team have been collecting a lot of data, putting it through and analyzing it, and so I just wanted to hit you with how do you see if we now shift across to what you all do for clients as against, do you see the government, or do you see them ideally mandating certain things? For example, all the codal requirements, fire requirements, certain checks and balances that need to be done on equipment, maintenance and things like that. No? So do you see any possibility of shifting onto that side and creating, like Akhil was mentioning, he's doing this stuff on the model. What about doing it and collecting that data real time and being able to process it for everyone?
Absolutely. Like, we are already moving in that direction, and it's a nice flow through. Like, you just mentioned MEP, and now we come to that. So, what's happening now is that if you're looking at the new age building management systems, they already are coming in with enough sensors and automation and visualization, so that you're being able to get a 3D image of this operational building, understand what your consumption is of different utilities on energy, and then be able to actuate in real time and manage the building operations. But we have already of course a large number of older buildings, and this is where a lot more of the retrofit automation is also coming in, where we are able to then install specific sensors, specific energy meters or water meters and so on, where you're able to then visualize and understand in real time what is the consumption, what is the usage, when do you need to switch something on, off, and so on, looking at building occupancy levels and using that as a metric to turn on, turn off lights and so on. So there's a lot of automation that is coming in, and some of it is obviously driven by the fact that the building needs to operate seamlessly. You need to have less human intervention of somebody coming in and doing that on a day-to-day basis. But when you start looking at the government intervention, right, and you ask that as a question. So at a national level, I'll tell you, at the Pollution Control Board, for example, that's a huge mandate. And if you are a building of a certain size, or if you're a commercial establishment, a large campus, a large commercial campus, you do need to declare your sustainability metrics, right? How much of output water are you generating? How much of effluents are you generating? What is the the metric, how much of pollutants are there, what's the quality of that output water, you need to measure. The STPs, the sewage treatment plants which are there, they need to be absolutely digital, and that data needs to be submitted real time depending on the size of your establishment. And then that is actually you're submitting it to, you're integrating your system into the national, into the state pollution board, their system, and that data can also get aggregated through this IUDX or one of these the urban data exchange platforms, and you can aggregate all of that, and you can actually see a footprint of, let's say, effluents or emissions and so on, and be able to see that. But that's, you can't mandate that in every area.
What about at a company level then? So what about ESG, etc.? Do you see yourselves doing a lot of traction over there? Because yes, there's certain proper data collection measurements from equipment, but there's also a lot of human collection as well over there.
So I think it's a yes and no. It's a growing field. Globally, you do see a lot more buildings which are building in either automation from the design level itself, or retrofitting buildings to ensure that there is automation and it's being managed. In India, it is still its early stages. There's a lot of ROI considerations that people do have. So you will see that, but it's still slower.
Okay, thanks. ROI, that touched all of us. Okay, let me jump across now. We've been talking a lot about the design side and all of this, but only really matters if we're able to get to our last client, and Kuldeep over here, who's in the room, happens to be our client, but yet our actual true client are the person that, we don't even know who they end up possibly selling to. So, Kuldeep, this one was for you. How do you all see, as developers, you all are a bit different from most of the other developers in that, it's a new generation of developers, very asset light, purely dependent on saying, on the fact that design will differentiate you all. So, yeah, so coming to the experience that you all use to sell, an apartment, for example, and taking that call of, do you go fully digital? Do you go with a lot of VR, AV, stuff like that? Or do you just go old school brick and mortar? Now, so how do you all make those choices?
Today, everything, is moving towards AI, is moving towards new technologies, and, all the new age representations, are changing how we end up selling things to our customers, and how customer believes in your product or sees your product. So now it's a matter of representation, and to discuss this, we recently launched a project in Mumbai wherein we had a sample flat, and we wanted them to experience the views of at what level, at 50th floor level, what are the views of your apartment, and we were able to do that using some technologies like VR. And you could do that at various floor levels. So, all these technologies are, of course, changing the experience for the customer. What it's also doing is that it's changing the speed, as we discussed, that, of how we take decisions onto closing up of a design, right, or the design process eventually, because that's what matters, of how fast you could decide on the design decisions, and how fast could you deliver a home to the buyer. Delivering is also about how fast you can sell it, and how fast you could convince your customer that, okay, this is something which is practical, which is efficient, etc., etc. So I think AI is with all other technologies inbuilt, like you said, VR and stuff like that, is helping us to consolidate data in a way that customer is now more he expects it to be more deliverable. AI is helping, I think, in that fashion. So and being design centric and being into this new age tech oriented firm, we definitely look into each and every new technology, how to incorporate it, how to give some comfort to the customers. And rather now we have started looking into how we can incorporate these things for the construction, for the real delivery on sites. You get like, cameras which are like, which could give you errors in terms of that there's some errors. It could give you your scheduling, that your building is not going as per schedule, all those things. And I think moving ahead, there's much more that needs to come into construction from this AI. I mean, by AI, we also somewhere means that it's data consolidated and processed into the form that you could use it much more in a much more friendly or much more efficient manner. And I think construction is, we are more thrilled about using this into construction because all the consultant, all the design guys are using or have started using into their design processes, giving us 10 iterations within hours of our next meeting, which used to take weeks. So we could decide on design aspects much faster now, but I think the challenge still is, or the next step is to involve this huge database that is semi-informal, lying into our field in terms of we do not have standardizations of products. We do not like every building facade is a new design, is a new contractor, is a new section. All these things of how we could consolidate all these data and start to make tagging or a digital tagging to building materials, which could then go into buildings and which could help us decide on cost. It has to become like a uniform package, wherein specification, costing, its fitments, its sizing, its specification are all tagged, and it could be and it goes for all the materials, whether it be plumbing pipes to your facade members to your electrical switch wires, etc., etc. So yeah, I think we are quite thrilled about how it will change the construction part. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So a couple of things now on what you said, and I'm going to come back to Ms. Ponni and Amrita Yall, because you mentioned speed. Now, Kuldeep also picked up on that speed, and now he's expecting 10 iterations before the next meeting. Now, so I'm going to tweak my question a little bit. With regard to, and also based on your answer, on how involved you all are right now with AI, as well as how the new kids that are coming along, how much faster they are or how far ahead they are. Now, so how do you see it as an architect today, being able to be, constantly moving yourself to be able to keep catching up with that? My initial question was, do you go down, a certain traditional route, or do you go down a full AI route? Now it's slightly more deviated. Now it's more, since you are definitely going down the AI route, but then what are the parts that, you keep as yourself, that stay hardcore, just, which you've been practicing forever? And what are the parts that you're very fluid on?
See, it's like this at Oscar and Ponni and Rahul Architects. We believe in moving with technology. If you don't do it, you're dead. It's as simple as that. So if you want to keep up with the competition, you will have to pull up your socks, be cognizant of the latest technologies that are practically, applicable. There's something, see, AI is such a loose term, but when you actually get into the nuances of it, it's not very inexpensive. It is expensive. Most of the time, I find, at least in India, clients don't pay for it. They expect you to deliver the same, results at the same fee sometimes. It's very unfair, but that's the truth. We also do a lot of international projects. We are doing, and with a couple of international contractors, even there your fees have to be competitive. But what we find is, like our experience with computers, I'm talking the mid-90s, it has served us very well over time. So I think this is a tool that you need to grab with both hands, ride the tiger, be cognizant and stay ahead of the competition. It's as simple as that, because it's a business end of the day. I mean, we are all creators of designs. We enjoy doing this. For example, there is an international project that we are working on right now, and the first non-negotiable element was AI-powered BIM platform, which the PMC, international PMC, the international contractor, and we as principal architects have to work on. We will also be getting into digital twinning. It's really exciting because it's something that we are also learning a lot, and I think it's a new territory. If you ask me on a personal level, I am excited. And you know, digital twinning goes on to like 5 stages, like you have the descriptive, the informative, the predictive, comprehensive twin, and of course the autonomous twin. So what we are doing is we are also educating ourselves on all of these aspects. We are collaborating with AI experts. No question and doubt about this. And the beauty is, you know, I'm just talking on a national level. We have such a great pool of young people who are indeed getting into the thick of all of this. I'm talking about tier 2 and tier 3 students, city students who have come in who don't actually know a lot of English, but they are very, very, very cognizant of the latest software programs that are in. It is a true testament of our country's greatness, the power of the youth that we have today. So I see a great future. You want to stay in business, you want to get ahead, grab AI with both hands. There's no two ways about it.
So wonderful. Yeah, either you ride the tiger, like you say, or you get disrupted by somebody else. No, perfect. Also, what you were mentioning about tier 2 city talent, me and Akhil were having the same conversation a little while back. What were you mentioning? Bhubaneswar, Imphal, you know, places like that where they're sourcing talent. And I mean, it's unfortunate. Hopefully, no architects in the room, but young architects. But Mumbai, we are facing similar challenges. You know, we're finding talent in tier 2 cities, you know, as against tier 1 cities. Okay, so I'll jump across now, Amrita, to you again. Again, based on something that Kuldeep said regarding their pain points. So I'll put time aside because that's one that we'll never be able to solve for them. But so approvals, cost, and time of construction. Okay, these, or let's say time of delivery. You know, these end up being points that come straight back to developers because it starts hitting them where their pocket is. You know, the cost of finance and all start coming into play because these are possibly things that we sometimes could not have control over. Now, so approvals, cost, and time. If these 3 things work out for them, a project goes through well. So, shift away from your what you're currently doing, but if you were to go into BIM, etc., and start building some support for that, do you see yourself moving into that side? For example, taking over on BIM models, being able to put into place certain software, tech, etc., that could take care of this part parallelly to the architectural process, so designers, engineers, and all can spend their time purely on designing and engineering rather than spending time on, you know, all of that part.
So let me answer that in 2 parts, okay? Like, you know, let me tell you what is happening already at the urban design level, and then let me come back to, like, you know, what can happen at the building and the architectural level. So in urban design, I'll tell you, like, you know, let's say 5 years ago, like, you know, when we were looking at the early digital twin concept of cities and implementing those, right? So you were looking at the GIS layer, mapping all of the city infrastructure on it, looking at some of the services, like, you know, let's say you're looking at waste management or you're looking at like, you know, traffic and lighting and so on. And then you were able to, and we were able to, and these are live cities in India, like, you know, tier 2 cities, like, you know, in India through the Smart Cities mission, where these have been implemented. And you're using, like, you know, that the digital twin of the city to actually envision, like, you know, what is happening, like, you know, where, for example, if you're looking at crowd control or safety and so on. So you're using, like, you know, that digital twin in a very real way to aid, like, your policing services or like finding lost kids and things like that. So there are enough examples of that. Today, like, if we fast forward to it, to the new digital twin that we are talking about, and how do we actually, like, so you're bringing in elements like drones, like, to do your street mapping and so on. So what used to be a manual process now can be automated, and all of that data, once that comes in, you have many other layers, right? Like, you can go down to 16, 17 layers of the city and map its infrastructure and its assets and create that digital twin, like, with one of the cities. Again, like, we're looking at women's safety and in North India, which is, a huge issue. So when you're looking at that, like, again, how do you then, like, layer, like, what are my black spots? What are my, like, which are the areas which are, like, less lit and so on, and map all of that in real time into a city system. Again, like, if you're looking at things like junction design, so the ability to get crowdsourced data on, for example, traffic and congestion and, like, origin destination studies and so on, map that onto a GIS, like, in a layer, and then, like, see, okay, where are the hotspots? Go down into those hotspots and then be able to, like, say, okay, this junction possibly needs to be redesigned, and then have those simulation models, like, okay, what if this junction is redesigned? What will happen to my traffic flow? So then, like, you're actually fast tracking and, like, doing things a lot more in real time with a lot more of this coordination across, like, many different kinds of providers, right? Like, no single provider has all the competencies, all the skills, all the technology that is needed. So you do, like, pool people together and skills together to do that. Now, if you look at that same concept in this, within architecture, and if you look at, 5D BIM or 7D BIM, yes, like, you can bring in that same concept. So I sit on the board of a couple of, like, real estate companies, and I think what you're talking about, speed and, like, getting stuck in, approvals is really, like, what brings you down, and what you can do at the plain digitalization layer, like, you don't even need a 5D or a 7D BIM for that, is, like, can you digitalize, like, like, in every part, like, there are 100, different things that you need to be mindful of, like, there are rules, guidelines, like, that you need to be mindful of. Can you actually at least, like, automate that, so that, like, the designers and the architects have that information, right, before you design. During the construction process, like, there's a timeline to everything of, like, which approval do you need at which stage, and if all of that data is digitalized, and we are implementing that in some of the companies where, if you have that information in a digital format and somebody is getting those automated reminders, you actually then manage, like, your offline processes of getting those things done. So it's nothing to do with AI, nothing to do with BIM, it's just pure digitalization, right? And that's needed because it's the cost of doing business, or, like, not.
Exactly. I want to shift away now from, so we've all been talking about tech on a very, what is it, design, but not really, or let's say more on computers, on PCs, we've not really shifted to the construction side yet. So I'll bring in Mr. Nagavarma in here. You, sir, are already doing it. We heard you're playing around with robotic arms and things like that in your production. So why don't you tell us a bit about it? How has that helped you all? And I believe you can just about do anything with that.
I would like to focus on the other end,
Okay.
on the execution part.
Yeah.
No 2, 3 doors are the same size. That's a challenge for standardization. As
These
Mr. Kuldeep-
architects, no?
Yeah. So I mean, if we look at the drawings, you will at least if we produce about 10,000 doors, out of which 7,000, 8,000 would be different sizes. So Mr. Kuldeep touched upon it because he's on the execution part. So I think some kind of standardization, if AI can help, I think it would help the industry and as well as the manufacturers to get to a better scale than what we are doing.
Okay. Akhil, I'll come back to you now. You've been for quite some time, okay, doing this. You also do a certain amount of work on the execution side as well. So according to you, what's that one single problem that you see across the industry for being able to completely enable tech?
So in the previous conversation also someone was saying that there's one side of tech that you don't really solve, though I'll answer that question of how we are solving it partly, I wouldn't say greatly. is the construction side, right? What is the tech the labor is using finally? While we produce on all sorts of platforms, the labor is executing finally on a drawing that is issued to them. And most likely it's the supervisor of the labor contractor who's been appointed by the main contractor who actually knows what's happening in that sense. So where digitalization we're not being able to touch is there. Now, where digitalization is being touched and touching that aspect, I'll tell you, like all of us are talking about digital twins for three things, right? Time, cost, quality. Globally, if you see a McKinsey report or an FMI report or an Autodesk report or any report, they'll say that globally projects are not getting done in budget. Only 31% projects apparently get done within budget across the world. So it's not that just Indian projects are going above budget. Only 25% projects are done on time. Now, how is digital twins solving this? We do construction management only for healthcare projects because they're complicated in nature and there's more engineering involved than as much as how the design can come through as well. Not that I'm saying that either or is important. We've delivered 20 hospitals so far at an average cost of 3,300 rupees a square foot, including GST. This includes the modular OT, the medical gas pipes, the medical curtains, the furniture, the everything. Now, how has Digital Twin helped us achieve that? We are so certain of our QS that we don't tender turnkey. So, this smallest hospital at a 50,000 square foot scale also is tendered in 72 packages. The reason we can do it in 72 packages is because we are confident of the quantities we have, right to the 25 mm conduit kitna lagega se 32 mm conduit kitna lagega. So that's a great saving in terms of cost. Now, how are we saving time? What she was talking about, that, and even Pony did, in terms of there is basic digitalization and there is predictive analysis. There's both, right? Now, the classic question, how are we saving time? Have you all ever done a project where the daily progress report that the supervisor fills goes into a data lake? Never does, right? Everything so sophisticated goes into your data lake, but you don't know what is the productivity of the labor, whereas that is the easiest point of digitalization. Not forget predictive. You'll apply the AI after that. We are building 50,000 to 1 lakh square foot hospitals, brownfields, within 4 months, including tendering. So, cost saved, time saved. Now, how are we achieving quality? This is when we talk about labor, right? That what is the labor benefiting from this technology? So we produce a kit of parts. When a labor goes to a toilet, he knows exactly what cut length pipes he needs, how many bends he needs, how many junctions he needs. So I would say it is at a rudimentary level still. We as a practice have even set up a global capability center for exactly this. That it's not only just the resources that produce the design detail, but also the resources that deliver that design detail on site that need to improve. So currently at that level, the most rudimentary level, it's kit of parts. If they can pre-cut, preset all their pieces that they need to go and assemble at a point central, it makes speed of delivery much, much faster. Yeah, that's sort of covers all of it.
No, I completely agree. I remember a friend telling me somewhere in China or so when Urban Claps moved a lot right now, but when it first came in, so somebody ordered something in China for some little retrofitting of something in the toilet or the other, and the person turned up with his belt. That belt held every part. So whether it required a certain pipe, a certain collar, a certain washer, they were all there, every little piece. And then in India, when Urban Clap first started out, the guy would come up and then he'd find out what the problem was, and then either he'd disappear and somebody else would come, then the guy would go down to the market to buy something, and then he'd come and it wouldn't fit, then he'd go again. And but yeah, I agree. There has been a lot of shift even in these companies, for example. Kuldeep, I want to come across back to you now. You have a few people over here on the design side. So what's your biggest angst from that side? Where do you see AI or tech? Where do you see us underutilizing it?
So I think our industry needs collaborative model, and there's a lot of data in every aspect or every different field, subfield, or engineering aspects of a building, designing it. So consultants needs to be more collaborative, and if we could do it through tech, and of course BIM was one technology which brought all things together. But further, as we're moving forward, all the technologies are now changing. We are talking about net geos, we are talking about hydrogen powered infra, hydrogen powered communities, and all the communities are now carbon neutral, all these things. We're talking about different technologies, right? We're talking about lightings which are AI powered, which could change how we're talking about how humans can feel differently with different lightings and with different aspects of technologies. So I think with moving times, it is the collaboration between the different techs, between the different consultants, between the different fields that needs to be brought into under one roof, and looking into the construction part of it, connecting it to that. So we're talking about design as one aspect, collaboration between the design guys. But how does this overall, coordinated set, so we say, in terms, and how can it be linked to the, purchasing of the materials, to standardization, and linking it to the construction back. I think that is where, we want the overall design industry to move forward, and including government agencies to, how do we ensure this so that, we could have better developments.
Okay, collaborative. These, I guess, RT Plus, Reality Plus are going to have to get more of these events where we're all talking and joking. Otherwise, normally we're fighting with one another across the table, architects, consultants. Ms. Pawny, I'll come across to you. Architects, young architects. So yes, they're already coming with a lot of new learning. They progressively, and that's constantly happened. 10 years ago it was different, now it's different, but they're constantly ahead of the game. But having said that, what would you say to them? What do you see them doing? Or what more do you think they should be doing?
I see a tectonic shift, because I'm also involved in academia, practice. So I can see the tectonic shift in the mindset of students. They've become very tech savvy, which is very good. I'm not saying no. But somewhere along the way, they're losing the touch on actual design. There is a power of pencil to paper. You can never take it off. And I'm saying this because I've been the transitory element from manual to now AI. So I would tell, and I say this to a lot of students that I meet, and I tell them, listen, it's great to be high-tech. Please learn as much as technology as you can, because that is the only one factor that's going to put you on par with international competition. So having said that, do not lose your grip on the actual design process in your head, because that is something AI or any computer can never, ever replicate. The power of original thinking. Never depend on AI to get you that N number of options and then sell it to a client. The true spirit of an architect comes out of, the originality from the mind and using AI as a tool. Having said that, I would also say this, AI has been a great blessing, because for me as an architect, and I'm going to take on what Kuldeep said, it has been the greatest of levelers. There's something called standardization in our field. Things that when I practiced in America, everything is standardized. A change order means, it's a huge impact on the finances of a budget. India, it's the other way about. We customize just about everything. And it's become a nuisance to developers and builders and contractors. Today we are building the tallest hospital in Hyderabad, and we're working with L&T. The first thing L&T mentioned to us is, please standardize all doors and windows, because that is an expensive element. So what AI is done, and we are using software to standardize all of these elements, doors, windows, dados of toilets, false ceiling levels, and AI actually helps you in standardizing everything. You don't have to break your head on this room, whatever. Set a program and it's done. So I think young architects should bear in mind that we are a force to reckon with. We are a design force to reckon with. Indian designers are now building fabulous buildings in the Middle East. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. Dubai, Africa, Middle East, even in Europe. We are actually making a very great dent for two reasons. One is we bring something called heritage value to Indian businessmen or investing abroad. They are carrying our designers abroad and getting them to design these beautiful buildings. So there is something called a cultural heritage we have, which is fantastic. Second, we have an adaptation to technology like no other country. That's the beauty of the Asian mind. We have culture in our heads, but we are also adapting to technology very well. So I would tell young architects to be very, very flexible. Use as much technology as you can. Be cognizant of it, because that's the way you can beat international competition. But always keep this business of the power of paper to pencil and the spirit of originality that comes from within our culture.
Yeah, I think that's very valid, because AI will facilitate a lot of movement, will open minds, will speed up time and all of that, but your core, that is something that everybody has to build up. And at the end of the day, that is the actual value that will go forward. Coming back now to Mr. Nagavarma, ma'am was mentioning certain amount of automation in things like standardization of doors, windows, things like that. Generally, I would say across the entire vendor base, it comes down to just about everything that is supplied, as a product, prefabricated. People were mentioning, during the last conversation, people were mentioning fast food, architecture being looked at as fast food. Now, I don't necessarily say it would be fast food. I mean, yes, you may have a few fries that come with a gourmet burger, but you still require those fries to be processed. And at the end of the day, McD's fries are good. What would you say about generally all the vendors? How fast do you see them moving on to, these tech applications and being able to give their products across so that, it just for architects, designers becomes...
Just give you a small example. My one is used across. And, if my one has to be, if they have to give the same sizes for the doors and windows, there's an additional cost of 25 rupees or something. So, ultimately the developer would like to save on that money, and, you would ask us to measure and manufacture, then, spend that money. So I think standardization is essential, because, you could produce more number of, designs can change, of course, but at least sizes need to be standardized. That's my, my such.
Where's your mic?
Just one fun thing, right now the way we do doors is कि साइड पे फर्मा बना देते हैं MS का.
Okay.
तो दीवार साइड पे ठीक बननी है क्योंकि उसको फर्मा में फिट होनी है. डोर का दरवाजा, like door का order is as per the फर्मा.
Okay.
So I mean it's a quick cheat, right?
Yeah. So
Easy and quick cheat.
So very similar to, I remember there was this one building we were doing with these doubly curved walls, and we ended up getting shuttering from Germany. But at the end of the day, we still had to bring in our Indian jugaad, where there was these little pieces of wood that got stuck in between to kind of formulate the wall yet. So I guess a little bit of jugaad, even in AI, BIM will have to get a little level of jugaad as well into it, I guess, at some point. Amrita, coming across to you now, you mentioned something that was quite valid regarding safety. You mentioned, I think, lost kids also, you're being able to map that. Again, I remember an institute we did on which in UP, the entire NCR area was generally not known for safety, and what we went and did was we explored vernacular projects. We went back to the old cities. The old cities had one thing in common always. They had eyes on everywhere. So wherever you were, unlike most of how new cities are developing, where a boundary wall comes up to protect the owners of the house, and then you lose both sides. So nobody can look in of what's going on inside. Is everybody safe? At the same time, nobody can look from inside out of what's happening on the street and if everybody is safe. So Coming to you, where am I? Where am I? Lost. Yeah. So I wanted to deviate a little bit from that to the outage that just happened, okay, with Microsoft and all of that. So you're the best person, I guess, on this panel to tell us how our lives could get disrupted. Your developers first, then all of us consultants on something like that.
So, I think we are all, several of us are tech converts on this panel, and tech is there to stay. So I don't think the question is like, yes or no on technology. I think it's just a matter of how do you manage the risk around it, right? And you don't know where that risk is going to come from, right? So one thing is, at the wherever you have those technology interfaces, right? Like, where you have a building and you're, you have the sensors or you have the software, ensuring that your protection layers are there, like, that's a must. Depending on the complexity of the operation, like, having things like disaster recovery centers and so on, like, like those are also a must, right? So when you're looking at, like, operations at the city scale or, like, transit and things like that, like, you need to have those inbuilt. If you have a lift, for example, and, like, you would need, like, something which looks at what are my fail-safe mechanisms in there, and what if there is a failure, and, what are my what-if mechanisms, and how can I bypass technology at that stage, right? So you would have to think through all of that. I don't think it's a question of either or. I think it's just a matter of mapping all your risks and then saying, what do I do to address all risks? And you can never address all risks, so some will always be, like, something that will surprise you. But you try your best to, map your risks.
Okay, thank you. That was more risk I was getting from the organizers. Okay, Kuldeep, I'll come across to you quickly. You again are dealing with our end users, so I ask you the question. What do you see as end users? What do you feel is that one thing that is going to impact this whole tech shift that we're in right now? The use of AI, etc. So what do you think is that one thing? You mentioned construction to a certain extent. It could continue to be some part of that, but how does the whole real estate vertical as such move along? What's going to come and disrupt us?
I think what technology is changing is the accuracy. I think we broadly touched that the BOQs, the costing, the time schedules, and everything, So what happens is that we are able to build structures. We are never able to, complete the buildings on time, because, that 100% closure of things for a building or for any process, even for design process, for that matter, that 100% closure doesn't happen on time. 90% things happen on time, but it's the last 10% which just gets elongated, stretched, non-decisive, budget escalations, all of that. So I think this technology is going to make things more accurate, and hence, more accurate in terms of time as well. So I think for our end users, it's a win-win thing that they're going to be happy that their buildings or their homes are going to get delivered on time, provided we all use the tech to a T. So yeah, that's what I see, accuracy. And I would also say that 100% closure,
I'm getting your pain point. Coming back to a lot of collaboration.
So it's not the 90% closure that matters. It's the 100% closure that matters. 90% on time and 10% delayed by 2x. It doesn't really help.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, the one constant that we always say we have in our industry is change. And that originates almost anywhere.
Design is ever evolving.
Again, designs are evolving, bylaws are evolving, products are evolving, the client base is evolving. Last question, Akhil, to you. I know you have a vision for digital twinning. So why don't you give it to me? What is it? Is it a 5-year vision, 10-year, 3-year?
I'm very patriotic, bro. I to think that hum duniya badal denge. We are in that stage. So it's a litmus test. how soon can we move from a BPO, KPO to a principal consultant? I think we've gone past the BPO phase, big companies having multiples of engineers doing BIM here or all sorts are probably days of the past soon. I'd say in 3 years we are at a KPO stage, and at 5 years principal consultant, man. Like, go get a project anywhere in the world.
Okay, great. So in closing, thank you all, you guys. I just want to pick up on some points that you all made. So starting with Dr. Ponni, you mentioned, I think, something that just started out the conversation perfectly on, climb on that tiger and ride it, and, or you will be disrupted. And I think any, a young architect, an architect of 10-year, 30-year, 40-year, it doesn't matter. And I think that's very valid. You have to keep upping your game, but remembering where your core is, and remembering that design is what you're there for. Everything else is to help the process. Coming to you, Amrita, you're our in-house data scientist. And I'm very pleased with the points you specifically made about mapping terrain, something that Dr. Ponni also was looking at, mapping people movement. I definitely think that our architecture needs to start giving us data back. There is a certain amount of it that we do, but it's very minuscule. The amount of mapping that we do of people, actual people, their emotions, their feelings, as well as actual data loggers. And hopefully a lot of that starts going back into the design process. Mr. Nagavarma, you mentioned standardization. And that definitely is something that, and I completely agree with you, we do end up having multiple sizes of doors, and sometimes for no reason. Architects are just lost in the beauty of what they're creating, and they forget. Even when they're doing an apartment, they will forget that the fact that there is no sense in certain things. But luckily, there is still that slight getting lost. We need some amount of jugaad in the process. Akhil, thanks again. No special training. We like that software, and that those plugins that you were talking about. Going international, that definitely seems like a drive that you personally have, and I guess a lot of us over here in the room as well. So that's great to take back. Kuldeep, collaboration. We're going to take that into account, collaboration across all the design partners, the engineering partners, as well as the supply chain that we have. So, yeah, thank you guys. Open to the audience. Oh, sorry, that's you. We don't have time?
Anybody who has any questions, we would love to take them, but then we are really pressed for time, so you may connect offline regarding the questions. And on that note, can I please request all of you to give a huge round of applause for this very interesting and in-depth panel regarding this very special topic. Thank you so much.